My name is Robert Hayes. I'm 61 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For 35 years, I worked in construction management, building homes for other families while quietly building a life for my own. 3 weeks ago, I retired. I thought it would be one of the best days of my life. Instead, it became the day I finally understood who my family really was. If you had told me a year ago that the people I gave everything to would forget me on the one day I needed them most, I would have laughed. But this isn't a story about anger. It's a story about what happens when a quiet man finally stops being invisible. Let me take you back. I married my wife, Diane, 28 years ago. Back then, I had nothing but a used truck and a dream of starting my own contracting business. Diane's family wasn't rich, but they carried themselves like they were. Her father, Gerald, ran a small insurance office. Her mother, Carol, never let anyone forget it. For years, I worked hard to prove myself to them. I built Diane a house with my own hands. I paid for her brother's college tuition when he couldn't afford it. I helped Gerald cover his mortgage during a rough year, no questions asked. I told myself that's what family does. You give, and eventually, it comes back around. Diane and I raised 2 kids together. We had good years, real years. Sunday dinners, road trips, birthdays with too much cake. I wasn't chasing gratitude. I just wanted to belong. Looking back now, the signs were always there. Small things I brushed off because I didn't want to believe them. Every holiday, conversations would shift the moment I walked into a room. Gerald would talk about real success, like it was a club I wasn't part of. Carol had a way of introducing me as Diane's husband, instead of using my name, like I was a detail, not a person. When my company finally took off after 20 years of grinding, something changed. Instead of pride, I felt distance. Instead of congratulations, I got questions about money. Diane's brother Kyle started showing up more often, always with a new business idea, always needing just a small loan. I gave again and again. I gave because deep down, I still believed loyalty was supposed to be mutual. The week before my retirement party, I overheard something I was never supposed to hear. I had gone into the kitchen to grab a drink during a family gathering. Diane, her mother, and her brother were in the next room, and the door was slightly open. I heard my own name. "He's retiring next week," Carol said. "We really don't need to make a big deal out of it. It's just Robert." Kyle laughed. "Yeah, it's not like he did anything special. He just worked a normal job for a long time." Then I heard Diane, my wife, the woman I built a life with. She didn't defend me. She just said, "I know. I'll figure out something small." I stood there in my own kitchen, holding a glass of water, feeling like a stranger in my own life. That night, I didn't say anything. I went to bed early and stared at the ceiling for hours. 35 years of work, 35 years of showing up. And to the people closest to me, it was not a big deal. I thought about every mortgage payment I covered, every tuition check I signed, every time I said yes when my gut told me to say no. I realized I had spent decades earning approval from people who never planned on giving it. The retirement party came. It was small, awkward. Diane's family didn't even show up. Gerald sent a text saying he had a scheduling conflict. Carol didn't respond at all. Kyle posted a vacation photo from Cabo that same weekend. I smiled through the party my coworkers threw me, but inside, something had quietly shattered. Not loudly, not dramatically, just completely. A few days later, I sat down with my lawyer David to update some paperwork, something I'd been putting off for years. While reviewing my estate plan, I realized how much of what I built was set to pass directly to Diane's side of the family through joint accounts, co-signed loans, and old promises made when I still believed loyalty meant something. David asked me a simple question. "Robert, does this still reflect what you actually want?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I asked him to pull every document tied to my name: the house, the business shares, the savings accounts, the life insurance policy. For the first time in years, I looked at my own life on paper, without emotion clouding the picture. What I saw was clear. I had built an empire of trust around people who never valued it. I want to be clear about something. This was never about hurting anyone. It was about finally protecting myself. I told David I wanted to restructure everything, quietly and legally, not out of spite, but out of clarity. My business shares would go into a trust for my children, structured so no outside family member could ever touch them. The house, fully in my name from years of payments, would be protected the same way. The small loans I had given to Kyle over the years, I still had every signed agreement. I had never enforced them because I loved my family. Now, I simply asked David to review my legal options. I didn't tell Diane, not yet. I needed everything finalized first. For once in my life, I stopped explaining myself in advance. Over the next 2 weeks, I met with David 3 times. We finalized a new will. My children, Emma and Jason, would inherit everything directly, protected in a trust that couldn't be touched by extended family, no matter what happened between me and Diane in the future. I also reached out politely to Kyle about the outstanding loan agreements, simply requesting a repayment schedule, as any lender legally would. Nothing aggressive, just fair. Diane noticed I was quieter than usual, but she assumed it was just retirement adjustment. She had no idea that for the first time in almost 3 decades, I was making decisions entirely for myself. The day everything was signed and notarized, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, peace. The truth came out naturally, the way truth usually does. At a family dinner a month later, Gerald casually asked about the business transition and what Emma and Jason would eventually inherit, assuming, as always, that family money flowed toward whoever asked the loudest. I told them calmly. The will had changed. The trust was locked. My children were protected, and any informal loans given over the years now had formal repayment terms, effective immediately. The table went silent. Carol's expression shifted from entitlement to disbelief. Kyle asked if I was joking. I told him I had never been more serious in my life. Diane pulled me aside later that night, hurt and confused. I simply told her the truth. I spent 35 years being not a big deal to your family. I'm done asking to be seen. I'm not telling you this story for sympathy. I'm telling you because somewhere out there, someone else is quietly giving everything they have to people who see them as an afterthought. Retirement didn't just mark the end of my career. It marked the end of me shrinking myself to keep the peace. I didn't destroy my family. I simply stopped financing my own invisibility. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Love and loyalty should never require you to disappear. Protecting yourself isn't revenge. Sometimes it's just the first time you finally show up for your own life. My name is Robert Hayes, and after 35 years of being overlooked, I finally chose to be seen.